Chosen one. The world has always tried to create rules, categories, and definitions to keep everything in order. It loves predictability. It loves patterns. It thrives on the idea that people should follow a specific path, live a specific way, and fit into a specific mold. But that was never meant for you. From the moment you became aware of yourself, something inside you felt different. Not just a little different, radically different. It's not about minor personality quirks or having slightly unique interests. It's something deeper, something in your DNA, something in your soul. It's the awareness that you don't see the world the way they do, and they don't see the world the way you do. Most people never question the system. They wake up, do what they're told, and live inside a structure that was built for them long before they even had a say in it. They follow the script given to them because it's easier, because it's safe, because it doesn't require them to think too much about who they really are and what they truly want. But you were never wired that way. You've always felt like an outsider in conversations, in expectations, in the way people assume life is supposed to go. It's not that you don't understand their world, it's that their world doesn't fully make sense to you. They've always tried to make you conform. They've always tried to tell you that your thoughts are too big, your dreams are too unrealistic, your energy is too much. They don't say it to hurt you. They say it because they genuinely don't get it. They can't process what it's like to be built differently, because they've never had to feel it. They live inside the lines, inside the rules, inside the expectations. They move in a straight line, following the crowd, blending in because it's easier than standing out. You were never meant to blend in. Think about the times you've tried to fit in, the times you've forced yourself to think smaller, just to avoid making others uncomfortable, the times you've pretended to agree just to keep the peace, the times you've silenced your own voice because you were afraid of how loud it might sound in a room full of people who weren't ready to hear it. And what happened? It never felt right. It never lasted. No matter how hard you tried, the real you kept pushing through. That's because you were never designed to follow. You were built to lead. There have been moments where you questioned yourself, where you wondered if maybe they were right, if maybe you were being too ambitious, too bold, too relentless. There were times you wished you could just think like them, move like them, be like them, just to make life a little easier. But every single time you tried to suppress who you really are, it felt like you were suffocating. That's not an accident. That's the universe reminding you of who you are. That's the proof that you were never supposed to walk their path. There's something inside you that refuses to be ordinary. You've felt it since you were young. Maybe you didn't have the words for it. Maybe you didn't fully understand it. But you knew. You knew that the way you saw things wasn't the way most people saw them. You knew that the things that excited you didn't excite others the same way. You knew that what felt normal to you seemed extreme to them. And over time you learned that trying to explain it to them didn't really help, because they weren't built to see it. They follow trends. You set them. They wait for permission. You create opportunities. They need validation. You trust your instincts. This isn't arrogance. This isn't about thinking you're better than them. It's simply about understanding that your wiring, your energy, your vision, it was never meant to match theirs. It was meant to take you somewhere else, somewhere higher, somewhere greater. People like you don't just show up in history. They don't just blend into the background. They either rise to unimaginable heights or spend their lives frustrated, misunderstood, and unfulfilled. The difference? Whether or not they embrace what makes them different. Whether or not they stop trying to fight who they are and finally lean into it. That's the real battle. That's the moment everything changes. When you stop apologizing for being different, everything starts to make sense. When you stop watering down your energy to make others comfortable, you start attracting the right people. When you stop thinking you need to fit into their version of success, you start building your own. You don't need permission. You don't need approval. You don't need anyone to understand your path. You just need to keep walking it. Think about every person who has ever changed the world, created something incredible, built an empire, or made an impact so big that people couldn't ignore it. Were they normal? Did they blend in? Did they play it safe? No, they were the outliers, the ones who refused to follow the rules just because everyone else did, the ones who saw the world differently and weren't afraid to act on it, the ones who weren't scared to be misunderstood because they knew their vision was bigger than the opinions of small-minded people. You are not like them. And that's the greatest thing you could ever be. Most people live their lives inside an invisible cage built by the opinions of others. They don't even realize it. They just follow along, accepting what they're told, believing what they're given, and never questioning whether the path they're on is actually their own. They don't want to stand out. They don't want to challenge the norm. They just want to be accepted, to be liked, to feel like they belong. And when they see someone like you, someone who thinks differently, someone who refuses to settle, someone who doesn't just accept the script they've been handed, they don't know how to react. It's not that they hate you. It's not even that they want to stop you. It's that they don't understand you. And people fear what they don't understand. They don't know what to do with someone who won't conform, who won't fall in line, who won't just go with the flow like everyone else. It threatens their sense of reality. It challenges the way they see the world. Because if you're right, if it's actually possible to live differently, to think bigger, to create something beyond what they've been told is possible, then what does that say about the choices they've made? So, they do what most people do when faced with something they don't understand. They reject it, they question it, they laugh at it. They try to convince you that you're wrong, that you're crazy, that you're unrealistic. They call your dreams impossible, not because they actually are, but because they can't see them the way you do. They only know what they've been taught. They only know what they've experienced. And when you operate on a different level, when you see opportunities where they see limitations, when you believe in things they don't even consider possible, it makes them uncomfortable. They'll tell you to be realistic. They'll tell you to slow down, to take it easy, to not get ahead of yourself. Not because they don't want you to succeed, but because they don't know what success outside of their reality even looks like. They'll project their own fears onto you, their own doubts, their own insecurities. They'll try to get you to second-guess yourself, because deep down, they've spent their entire lives second-guessing themselves. They've ignored the little voice inside them that once wanted more. They've settled, and nothing makes people more uncomfortable than someone who refuses to settle like they did. The truth is, you were never meant to be understood by the majority. You were never meant to fit into their version of reality. You were never meant to walk their path. And the moment you realize that, the moment you stop looking for validation from people who were never meant to give it to you, is the moment you become unstoppable. You don't need them to understand you. You don't need them to support you. You don't need them to believe in your vision, because it was never their vision to begin with. It was placed inside you for a reason. And if they don't see it, if they don't get it, if they think you're crazy, then good. That's proof you're on the right track. History doesn't remember the ones who fit in. It remembers the ones who didn't. The ones who were doubted, laughed at, criticized, and misunderstood. The ones who were told they were too much, too ambitious, too unrealistic. The ones who refused to let small-minded people dictate their future. You are not here to live inside someone else's limitations. You are not here to shrink yourself just to make others comfortable. You are here to break barriers, to challenge norms, to redefine what's possible. And if that makes people uncomfortable, so be it. There will be moments when it gets lonely, when you look around and realize that the people you once related to don't see the world the way you do anymore. That the conversations you used to enjoy now feel small. That the things they care about no longer excite you. And that's okay. Growth means outgrowing. Evolution means leaving behind what no longer aligns with who you're becoming. You can't take everyone with you. Not everyone is meant to understand your journey. There will be people who doubt you, people who question your every move, people who talk behind your back, waiting for you to fail just so they can feel better about staying where they are. Let them. Their opinions don't determine your success. Their disbelief doesn't define your future. The only thing that matters is whether you keep going, whether you keep believing, whether you keep showing up every single day, despite the noise, despite the doubt, despite the fact that most people will never understand why you do what you do. Most people live small because they're afraid of being judged. They're afraid of being talked about. They're afraid of standing out too much, of being too different, of making others uncomfortable. But the truth is, no matter what you do, people will judge you. They'll talk about you whether you're winning or losing. They'll have opinions about your life whether you play it safe or go all in. So why not do what actually sets your soul on fire? Why not take the risk? Why not chase the dream? If people are going to talk, let them talk. If they're going to doubt, let them doubt. Just don't let it stop you. You have to be willing to be misunderstood. You have to be okay with being different. You have to accept that not everyone will get it. And that's a good thing. Because the more people don't understand you, the more proof you have that you're doing something real, something big, something beyond what the average mind can comprehend. They might not see it now. They might not believe in you yet. But one day, when they see what you've built, when they see how far you've come, when they see that you never needed their approval to succeed, they'll remember the way they doubted you, and they'll wish they had believed in you sooner. But by then it won't matter, because you won't need them to. Most people spend their entire lives trying to fit in, trying to be accepted, trying to be like everyone else. They suppress their uniqueness. They dim their light. They silence their own voice just to blend in with the crowd. They're afraid of standing out, afraid of being different, afraid of being seen as too much, too weird, too ambitious, too intense. So they shrink themselves. They edit their thoughts before they speak. They adjust their dreams to make them more realistic. They hide the parts of themselves that make them special because they've been taught that being different is a disadvantage. But that's a lie. Being different isn't a disadvantage. It's your greatest gift. It's the thing that sets you apart, the thing that makes you powerful, the thing that makes you unstoppable. The world doesn't need more people who fit in. It doesn't need more people who think the same, act the same, live the same. It needs people who are willing to break the mold, people who see things differently, people who refuse to settle for mediocrity just because it's easier. That's you. That's why you've always felt different. That's why you've always struggled to fit in. Not because there's something wrong with you, but because you were never meant to fit in. You were born to lead. It's easy to doubt yourself when the world keeps trying to tell you that you should be like everyone else. When people look at you funny because your ideas don't match theirs. When they roll their eyes because they don't understand your vision. When they laugh at your dreams because they seem too big, too impossible, too crazy. It's tempting to question yourself. to wonder if maybe they're right, if maybe you should just tone it down, play it safe, stay in your lane. But the moment you start doing that, the moment you start betraying your own uniqueness just to gain their approval, you lose the very thing that makes you powerful. The most successful people in the world weren't the ones who played it safe. They weren't the ones who followed the crowd. They were the ones who dared to be different. The ones who refused to let the opinions of small-minded people dictate their future. The ones who embraced their uniqueness, owned their differences, and used them to create something extraordinary. Every game changer, every innovator, every leader who has ever made an impact started out being misunderstood. They were called crazy, they were doubted, they were criticized. But they didn't let that stop them. They kept going. They believed in themselves even when no one else did. And eventually, the same people who doubted them had no choice but to respect them. You have something inside you that most people don't. A vision, an energy, a way of thinking that isn't ordinary. That's why you've always felt out of place in certain rooms. That's why normal conversations don't excite you. That's why small talk bores you. Because you were never meant for ordinary. You were meant for something greater. And the sooner you stop fighting that, the sooner you stop trying to blend in with people who were never meant to understand you, the sooner you'll step into the life that was meant for you. Think about all the times you've doubted yourself, not because you didn't believe in your own potential, but because the people around you didn't see it. Think about all the times you held back, not because you weren't ready, but because you were afraid of what they would say. How many moments have you wasted trying to make yourself smaller, just to fit into places that weren't even designed for you? How much time have you spent seeking validation from people who don't even have the capacity to dream as big as you do? You don't need their approval. You don't need them to get it. You don't need them to see what you see. Because the truth is, they can't. They don't have your vision. They don't have your mindset. They don't have your fire. That's why it's your dream, not theirs. That's why it was given to you, not them. You were chosen for this. You were built for this. And the only thing standing between you and everything you're capable of is your willingness to own that fact completely. The moment you stop apologizing for being different, the moment you stop waiting for permission, the moment you stop waiting for permission, the moment you stop waiting for permission, the moment you stop seeking validation from people who were never meant to understand you, everything shifts. You start moving differently. You start thinking differently. You start showing up in a way that demands respect. You stop playing small. You stop letting fear dictate your actions. You start stepping fully into your own power. And that's when the world starts paying attention, because the world doesn't ignore people who own their uniqueness. It tries to resist them at first. It tries to mock them. It tries to make them feel out of place. But eventually, it has no choice but to acknowledge them. Eventually, the same people who didn't believe in you will be the ones pretending they always did. The same people who laughed at your dreams will be the ones asking you how you did it. The same people who doubted you will be the ones looking up to you. That's why you can't let temporary opinions stop you from reaching permanent success. That's why you can't let people who don't have your vision influence your decisions. That's why you can't afford to let small minds keep you from building something massive. You are not here to be like them. You are not here to blend in. You are not here to live a life that looks like everyone else's. You are here to disrupt, to inspire, to elevate, to show people what's possible when you refuse to settle. And the only way to do that is to embrace every single thing that makes you different. The world has rules, not real rules, made up ones, unspoken expectations, invisible limitations, systems that tell you how you're supposed to think, how you're supposed to live, how you're supposed to act. And most people follow them without question. They don't even realize they're doing it. They go to school, get a job, pay their bills, and live in a cycle they never escape because that's what they were taught. That's what everyone else is doing. That's what feels normal. But you've always felt different. You've always looked around and wondered why things are the way they are. You've questioned why people accept things that don't make sense, why they follow paths that lead nowhere, why they do what they do, even when it doesn't make them happy. You've seen through the illusion. You've felt the pull of something greater, and because of that, you've always known deep down that you were meant for something more. The problem is, when you see beyond what others see, when you refuse to accept what they accept, when you challenge what they believe, you become a threat. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because you make them question their own lives. You make them uncomfortable. Your very existence reminds them that they too once had dreams, that they too once wanted more, that they too once believed they could do something different, but they gave up. They convinced themselves that it wasn't possible, that it was too risky, that they had to be realistic. And then they see you, refusing to settle, refusing to give up, refusing to live the way they do, and it shakes them. Because if you're right, if you actually make it, if you actually build something bigger, if you actually break free, then what does that say about them? What does that say about all the excuses they made? What does that say about all the times they told themselves they couldn't? So they try to bring you back down. Not because they hate you, not because they want to see you fail, but because they need to justify their own choices. They need to believe that settling was the right thing to do. They need to convince themselves that playing it safe was the smart decision. And the only way they can do that is by making you doubt yourself, by making you question your dreams, by convincing you that your way won't work, that it's too risky, that it's not realistic. But here's the truth. You don't owe them anything. You don't owe them an explanation. You don't owe them an apology. You don't owe them the comfort of staying small just so they feel better about their own choices. Your purpose isn't to make them comfortable. Your purpose isn't to fit into their version of what life should be. Your purpose is to become everything you were meant to be, whether they understand it or not. The hardest part about chasing something bigger is realizing that not everyone is going to come with you. Some people will drift away. Some people will fall behind. Some people will choose to stay in the same place while you keep growing. And that's okay. Not everyone is meant to walk this path with you. Not everyone has the vision, the drive, the mindset to break free from what they've been taught. You can't save them. You can't make them see what they refuse to see. You can only keep moving forward and hope that one day they decide to do the same. There will be days when you feel alone, days when you wonder if it's worth it, days when you think about going back to what's familiar, to what's easy, to what's safe. But safe doesn't lead to greatness. Safe doesn't change the world. Safe doesn't create impact. The only people who ever make a difference are the ones who are willing to take risks, to bet on themselves, to do what most people are too afraid to do. You have to be willing to keep going even when no one believes in you. You have to be willing to bet on yourself even when no one else does. You have to be willing to trust your vision even when it doesn't make sense to anyone else. Because if you don't, who will? If you don't believe in yourself, why would anyone else? If you don't fight for your dreams, who will fight for them? Most people wait for permission. They wait for someone to tell them it's okay to chase their dreams. They wait for approval. They wait for validation. But no one is coming to give it to you. No one is coming to save you. No one is going to hand you the life you want. You have to take it. You have to create it. You have to decide right now that you are done waiting, that you are done asking for permission, that you are done seeking approval from people who don't even have the courage to chase their own dreams. This journey is not for the weak. It's not for the ones who need constant validation. It's not for the ones who give up the moment things get hard. It's the ones who are willing to go all in, the ones who refuse to quit, the ones who would rather fail trying than live their entire lives wondering what could have been. There will be sacrifices. There will be late nights. There will be moments when you feel exhausted, when you feel drained, when you feel like nothing is working. But every successful person you admire has been there. Every legend, every game changer, every person who has ever built something great has gone through the struggle, the doubt, the setbacks. What separates them from everyone else is that they didn't quit. They kept going. They believed in themselves even when no one else did. They trusted the process even when it didn't make sense, and eventually they made it. That's what it takes. That's the price of greatness. The willingness to keep pushing forward even when no one understands you. The willingness to trust yourself even when the world tells you you're crazy. The willingness to be different even when it makes others uncomfortable. Most people won't do it. Most people won't take the risk. Most people won't step outside their comfort zone. But you're not most people. You never have been. You never will be. And that is your greatest advantage. Your uniqueness isn't a weakness. It's the exact thing that will make you unstoppable.